We'll jump into today's episode right after this announcement. For over 13 years, something remarkable has been happening. Rural hospitals and other small healthcare organizations that have partnered with Capstone have been achieving results and forming workplace cultures that even we are blown away by. It is truly a game changer when rural hospitals are the provider of choice and employer of choice so they can keep care local and margins strong. Far more healthcare organizations need to experience what's possible. That's why we're stepping forward in a bigger way, expanding our team of experts, expanding our capabilities by adding a strategic planning division to expand our ability to help even more rural hospitals and other healthcare organizations in 2026 and beyond. Capstone will continue to be the partner that small healthcare organizations can count on to meet them where they're at and guide them towards a stronger future. You can learn more at capstoneleadership.net. So this is season 3, employer of choice, provider of choice, community strong. Every episode will connect back to one or more of these priorities. If you're a healthcare leader who wants less chaos, more confidence, and progress you can actually measure, you're in the right place when you tune in each week to Culture Change RX. Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage. Welcome back to Culture Change RX, the podcast where we focus on the people side of healthcare and what it really takes to build strong, sustainable healthcare organizations. It is me, Sue Tetzlaff, co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions and your host of Culture Change RX. And this is one of those solo episodes that we call a Culture Bite. And today's Culture Bite is an opportunity for us to kick off season 3 of the podcast. So it's been 2 full years ago that we started the podcast Culture Change RX. As well, it's actually our company's birthday. We started our company 14 years ago on Groundhog's Day, February 2nd. So this 3rd season kickoff is coming out at about the same time as our company's birthday. So lots to celebrate here. If you've been with us from the beginning of the podcast, you know it was created with leaders of small and rural healthcare organizations in mind, leaders who carry a lot of responsibility, often with fewer resources, and who deeply care about the future of their hospital and community. So as we kick off season 3, I want to start by naming something I see consistently in my work across the country with small and rural healthcare organizations. The hospitals that are making progress right now aren't working harder. They're working differently with intention, focus, and systems that support people, right? And that's what this podcast is all about, is the people side of healthcare. So our season 3 is going to be built around this one belief. Strong hospitals don't happen by accident. They are designed intentionally around people, care, and community. Everything we'll talk about this season falls into 3 connected categories: employer of choice, provider of choice, and the community hospital as a long-term community asset. These are not separate goals. In fact, every organization we've worked with, dozens of them over the last 14 years, have learned to strengthen and leverage their strengths in people, service, and culture. So let's tee up season 3 and these 3 priority themes for the year, starting with the first one, employer of choice. Let's start with this because nothing else works without it. In one rural hospital that we partnered with, employee engagement started at the 26th percentile nationally. Their leaders were discouraged, frustrated, turnover was frequent, and it felt inevitable. And instead of layering on perks, they engaged and focused in strengthening their leadership practices, engaging their employees in employee driven teams and goals, and created a clear goal cycle that truly did invite staff to help with desired improvements. So employees didn't just have a voice in change, they actually had a hand in it through teams and through department specific goals. So leadership strength, employee contributions, these are 2 important aspects of building an organization that is the employer of choice. And what they saw was that when they did this, within 1 year, engagement climbed to the 71st percentile. And then the following year, it went to the 94th percentile. What changed wasn't the workload. What changed was ownership, clarity, and pride. That's what employer of choice looks like. Employees contributing beyond their day-to-day job descriptions, leaders leading consistently and effectively, and people seeing their fingerprints on progress. In season 3, we'll unpack how to invite engagement structurally, why behaviors matter most, and what leaders do differently in organizations that improve patient, employee, and business outcomes year after year. Because engagement isn't something you demand, it is something you design. So we're very excited about the upcoming episodes on the theme of employer of choice healthcare organizations. Now, our second theme for the upcoming year is on becoming the provider of choice. In one community hospital that I led early in my career, patient satisfaction sat in the bottom quartile. The community, even our own employees, had learned to bypass their local hospital. But instead of chasing quick fixes, we focused on setting and achieving high standards for quality and service. Again, engaging our employees to be the ones to help us create that provider of choice status, and our leaders leading more consistently and effectively to help achieve that status of provider of choice, creating safer and satisfying care. And within 1 year, we moved into the top quartile for patient satisfaction. And then we leveraged that for volume increases, and out-migrations dropped significantly. And perhaps most telling, community members started to say things like this: "We hate it when you have to go anywhere else for healthcare." That's provider of choice. And another example of provider of choice status is when another rural hospital we partnered with increased patients' willingness to recommend from a mean score of 71 to 91% in just 18 months. That's a 20-point increase, and it caused them to be number 1 of 121 hospitals in their state in patient satisfaction. That increase of 20% was huge because the national average moves less than 1% per year. And they didn't increase their volumes because they advertised more, because they worked harder. They increased their volumes because patients were willing to recommend the services of their local healthcare organization to their friends and families all around them. It's so amazing to see what happens when a healthcare organization standardizes excellence and the community notices and responds. So this season, we'll explore service excellence that is achieved through systems, reducing variation in the patient experience, adopting communication standards that improve safety and trust, and how reputation is a leverage for growth and profit. But we've got more in store for you than that. We'll also be focusing episodes on the hospital as a key community asset. We know that in rural communities, hospitals are more than care sites. They are often the largest employer. They are training grounds. They are sources of pride, and they are economic anchors. We like to say this, and you've heard us say it before likely, is that when we strengthen a community hospital, we strengthen the community. An example of that is one hospital we partnered with improved culture and engagement so significantly that they became an amazing magnet for talent. And they began recruiting providers and patients from a much bigger city about 30 plus miles away. That didn't happen by accident. It happened because leadership played the long game. Culture, care, and community were treated as strategic, not reactive. So in season 3, we will explore how community trust is earned and protected, how employee pride fuels word of mouth growth, how small hospitals compete with the big guys for talent and patients, and why bigger isn't better when it comes to healthcare, and why strong systems protect organizations during times of uncertainty. So this is season 3, employer of choice, provider of choice, community strong. Every episode will connect back to one or more of these priorities. If you're a healthcare leader who wants less chaos, more confidence, and progress you can actually measure, you're in the right place when you tune in each week to Culture Change RX. And if these conversations sparks questions about how to apply this work in full in your organization, I'd love to connect. At Capstone, we partner with small and rural healthcare organizations to build leadership practices and execution systems that makes progress in these areas repeatable and sustainable. Thanks for listening to Culture Change RX. Cheers to season 3 and to building hospitals people choose, trust, and rely on for generations to come. Tune in next week for our first episode of season 3 on Culture Change RX. Bye now. Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.